1121 is out, and there were a ton of changes to champions and items, and this of course has had a big impact on those OP champion and item combinations. So in today's video, the gist is going to reveal the 10 best builds of 1121, but this is in no particular order. So why not put down your most broken build in the comments? Now make sure if you haven't already to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our daily uploads, and let's get into it. So the first build and champion combination guides we have to consider for being the best in 1121. This is the Luna's Tempest and Cosmic Drive combination for Fizz and LeBlanc in particular. Now of course you can run this on other mages in the mid lane, but for Fizz and LeBlanc, two AP assassins, this combination is out of this world. The magic penetration you get right off the bat with Ludens, and from its mythic passive gives it the scaling you need, and then once you get Cosmic Drive you insta-activate its passive, so you get that ability haste and movement speed, and ability haste on any assassin in this game is a huge stat. The movement speed comes in really handy as well because you can roam around the map and kill pretty much everyone. Now the downside of this setup is that you don't have any real defense, because what lots of players will build guys after Luden's Tempest is either a Zhonya's Hourglass, maybe a Banshee's Veil, just some sort of defense. So with Cosmic Drive it's very offensive, and I'd really recommend this when you are snowballing. You will be able to kill a game off quicker as a result, but it does leave you a little more vulnerable, but still the ability haste should give you more cooldowns, and therefore if you're playing Fizz on Blanc, more survivability. And this is one reason why these two champions already in 1121 have two of the highest win rates in the mid lane, so I would highly recommend getting your hands on them and building Luden's Tempest and then Cosmic Drive. Just make sure as well to pair Luden's Tempest with Sorcerer's Shoes to enhance that magic penetration, and you have the ingredients for a 20-30 kill game. Now the next build I want to draw your attention to is a very specific champion and item combination, and it also includes a rune. So I don't know if you guys have seen, but Nami in recent patches with Electrocute has been popping off, and because Imperial Mandate got buffed last patch, this is your mythic and not Moonstone. This setup is huge, and the burst damage you have in the bot lane with particular AD carries is nuts. But you have to be very careful guys, because when you're picking Electrocute Nami, you're really using this to proc off your teammates' damage, and it has to be quick burst damage as well. So if you think of AD carries like Lucian, or maybe Draven with Hail of Blades, or Tristana with Hail of Blades, these AD carries are ideal because they get off a lot of damage in quick succession. But if you're playing with maybe a Kog'Maw or a Jinx, it's not going to reap the same rewards. So make sure you're picking this rune page with the right AD carry next to you, and when you have your Imperial Mandate and then your cooldown boots, this amplifies your damage and your teammates, and it gets to the point if you have the right AD carry next to you, where if you land one bubble, the enemy champion, even if they're a support, they are 100% going to die. So if Nami is left open guys and you do have one of those aggressive ADCs, make sure you lock her in 1121. Now this next setup, this is more of an item rush than an actual build, but it's still one of the best in the game. So this is for AD assassins like Kha'Zix, like said, Jungle Graves, this is really good for as well, and this is quite simply just a Ghostblade rush. Now ever since Riot gave Ghostblade flat ability haste a few patches ago, the Ghostblade rush has been really prolific for these AD assassins. Now of course you're getting attack damage, lethality, who doesn't want that, but you're also getting the passive and active movement speed. And remember, this is one of the reasons why Cosmic Drive for Fizz and LeBlanc is so good, because the movement speed on these assassins enables them to get around the map and pick off kills. Now obviously depending on the champion you're playing, the next item you follow Ghostblade with is going to change. So if you're playing Kha'Zix and Zed, Duskblade is probably going to be the best, but if you're playing Jungle Graves, then Shield Bow is definitely better. But just remember guys, with Ghostblade, lots of players for some reason tend to use this during the fight rather than actually before or even after the fight when it comes back off cooldown. So try to think of using Ghostblade almost like a jungler would use their Predator, actually activating the movement speed through the rivers or through the jungle or even through the lane just to get to that fight quicker is going to be more consistent instead of using it when you're already at that location. So make use of the active by getting to the fights quicker rather than actually being quicker in the fights. This will have much more of an impact and enable you to get more kills and carry harder. Now another item rush here guys that I think is super underrated, but honestly one of the best in the game in 1121 is the Stridebreaker rush, and there's one champion in particular I think who can really make use of this, and this is Nocturne. Now if you cast your mind back to kind of middle of the season, Nocturne with Stridebreaker was completely bonkers if you played him top, mid or in the jungle, because the slow was 90%. Pair this with your ultimate and as soon as you dive onto that enemy champion, you're applying that slow and there's no way they get away. But now because the slow has been reduced, pretty much every other champion who builds Stridebreaker isn't really that good, but Nocturne still holds a lot of his power just because his ultimate is still really hard to get away from, and the great thing is the Stridebreaker got adjusted this patch and probably for the better. You're getting more AD now from the item, and the active is also scaling off your base AD, and because Nocturne's base AD is pretty good, this is actually going to be a buff really until 5 or 6 items. But just make sure guys, because Nocturne has been nerfed so much for the laning phase, make sure you are playing Nocturne in the jungle. Your clear is still really good and your dueling potential is still right up there. And because I'm so nice as well, I'm also going to give you the rune page you have to go. Now this revolves around lethal tempo and not Conqueror. Conqueror has been nerfed this patch, and just because Nocturne kind of struggles to stack it quickly like other champions, lethal tempo Bow is the best keystone. Now, what's also interesting, in the secondary tree, you're taking Domination with Eyeball Collection because it's pretty easy to stack, and also Ultimate Hunter. This is going to reduce your ultimates cooldown so you can get more of these off, and this will allow you to have a massive presence on the map, and if you get more ultimates off, you're going to get more kills and you're going to carry more. So Nocturne with the new and improved Stride Breaker, definitely one to watch out for in 1121. Now, the next champion and item combination, guys, we have to think about for 1121 and watch out for, this is the Nash's Tooth and Riftmaker combination, which is so deadly for consistent damage AP champions like Kayle, Teemo, who has been buffed this patch, and Katarina. Now, the Teemo I really want to focus on because of what's happened this patch, guys. You've got 3 massive buffs. So your Q, the cooldown is down to 7 seconds. The blind is also lasting 3 seconds at rank 5, which is kind of absurd. And the actual dart itself is also traveling faster. So for Teemo in the top lane, really hard to pass up on if he is open. And if you think about these champions as well, who I just mentioned, Kayle, Teemo, Katarina, Nash's Tooth, the attack speed, the ability power, of course this is going to be useful, but also the on-hit this is giving. So if you think of Kayle with her E and her passive at level 11, if you think of Teemo with his E, and if you think of Katarina with pretty much her entire kit, this is a massive first item spike, and is one of the reasons why these champions have been consistently good all season long, simply because Nash's Tooth has remained as such a good item. Now, following this up with Riftmaker is really going to capitalize on those extended trades and enhance your DPS. But unfortunately this patch, because Ravenous Hunter has been nerfed, if you are running this in your rune page, this build obviously won't be as giga OP, but because Ravenous Hunter is still giving you a decent amount of Omni-Vamp in the late game, and this is when these champions really shine, it will still be good. So what do we think? Nash's Tooth Riftmaker with Kayle, Teemo, Katarina? Is this the nuts? Now we're going to kind of stay in the top lane here, guys, and I'm going to give you one item rush, or mythic item rush, that is going to be so good this patch, and the reason for this is because Gore Drinker has been nerfed and Stride Breaker has been adjusted, so the other mythic DPS in the top lane that hasn't actually been touched this patch grows in value, and this is the Divine Sunderer rush. And if you think of Camille, Nasus, Wukong, and there are a bunch of other champions in the top lane who can build this, it just stands out to me at least as the go-to mythic in the top lane. Now, one of the main reasons this item is so amazing is because of the Spellblade passive, and if you have any sort of on-hit in your kit, so Camille's Q, Nasus's Q, Wukong's Q, all of these abilities are actually going to make use of the Spellblade, and because it's on a low cooldown, especially in the mid to late game when you actually do have a lot of ability haste, this can be super broken. And I'm sure you've all seen a Camille with 3 to 4 items and Nasus in the late game, and in particular, guys, just remember the Conqueror has been nerfed, so if you are playing Camille with Grasp the Undying or Nasus with Fleet Footwork, you are also untouched this patch, which is a really good thing for bruisers and fighters in the top lane. So the Divine Sunderer rush, what do you guys think? Is this going to be the best? Now we're going to head back to the bot lane here, guys, and talk about the next best support setup, and this is for those spellcasters who revolve around healing. So if you think of Sona and Soraka, this build with Moonstone Renewer and then Chemtech Putrefy is by far one of the best support builds, and builds in general also has a super high win rate on both of these champions, even in high reload where you think they might struggle. And because this season, guys, from 11-11, the actual heal and shield power per stack of Moonstone has been increased, and ever since Sona's mini rework and ever since Soraka's ultimate got buff, these two champions have been building this setup like no other. This is why across the board they have some of the highest win rates, and if we just think about Sona, she is the second highest in 11-21. So if these two champions are open, make sure to build these two items and also pair these with cooldown boots so you can make use of the ability heads and get more cooldowns off, and you will then understand why this build is on this list. So Sona Soraka with the healing setup. Now speaking of healing, we're going to go to the mid lane and talk about everyone's two favorite champions they see in the mid lane, and this build is for Yasuo and Yone. Now, Immortal Shieldbow, we all know why this is an amazing mythic for these two champions. It still gives you good DPS, lifesteal for your auto attacks and your Q, and it also gives you survivability, because for Yasuo and Yone, going into a fight after ulting, you can sometimes get blown up, but Shieldbow is giving you the shield, funnily enough, and also the survivability because of this to survive these fights. But after this, guys, the build is really made up by going Mortal Reminder. I know some Yasuos and Yones in lower elo might go Infinity Edge or even Bloodthirster, but Mortal Reminder, I'm telling you, because there is so much healing in the game, it's still giving you enough DPS to one-shot people, but it is giving you the Grievous wins you desperately need, because most of the time as well, you are going to be 1v1ing champions who might be fighters. So Riven's for Yours, for example. And even if you're diving onto the enemy bot lane, if there's a spellcaster like Sona or Soraka in 11-21 in there, you are going to want and actually need the Grievous wins to be able to kill these squishy champions. And the fact again, guys, for another patch that Yasuo and Yone are floating around a 50-51% win rate goes to show how good these two champions are with this build. They're not the hardest champions to make work, but there's a big skill ceiling, and if you can master these two champions and then build Shieldbow into Mortal Reminder, you are going to have success in 11-21, that is for sure. So this might not be the most broken build, but it's probably the most annoying and definitely deserves a mention on this list. Now for the penultimate build and champion combo, guys, we're going to talk about here. This is one really for the bot lane, but you can still make this work in the mid lane on these champions, Brand, Zyra, and Swain. Champions we love in lower elo when they're played as a support because they do the most damage while dying 20 times, and this is with Liandra's Anguish and Zhonya's Hourglass. Now these three champions, though they aren't the best in high reload, they have so so much agency in lower elo just because players typically don't know how to space and count cooldowns, so they end up running into these champions with their stuns and their snares up, and they end up giving them a ton of kills. And because Brand and Swain in particular have tick damage and Zyra has her consistent damage with her plant, the Andrew's Anguish, the burn gets procced over and over, and with Zhonya's Hourglass in there, if you do get jumped on by an enemy assassin or if you do misplay, you can pop your Zhonya's and then react to this with your cooldowns when they come back up. So it's a super obnoxious and well-known champion and item combination, but that doesn't make it any less effective in 11-21, and it is certainly one of the best combinations still in the game, especially in lower elos. So if Brand, Zyra, Swain are open, guys, make sure you're still building Liandry's and Zhonya's, and you'll do more damage than anyone else in that game. Now, the last build I have to draw your attention to for 11-21 is actually a top lane setup, and this is a really interesting one this patch because top lane has been hit pretty hard by Gore Drinker, Stridebreaker a little bit in the Conqueror nerfs. So if you're building Titanic Hydra, it's like while every other champion goes down in value, you go up as a result. So Titanic Hydra abusers like Urgot, Kled, Set, this item is going to be a lot more useful this patch. Now, the reason Titanic Hydra is so good on these champions is because the cleave passive is so easy to proc, and the HP you get, and all of these champions build a lot of HP, is getting transformed into some sort of attack damage. This is why for Urgot in particular, you're going Titanic Hydra, Black Cleaver for the HP ability haste and stickiness, and then you're going your mythic Frostfire Gauntlet, which is giving you HP for each major item you have. So again, the more HP you have from your items, the more AD you're getting. And specifically here, this is why Urgot is actually so good at the moment, because this interaction with your Purge, your W, is still in the game with Titanic Hydra's cleave passive. But as I said, any Titanic Hydra abuser in the game like Kled and Set as well, these are going to have a very fun time in 11-21 because everything else pretty much around them is getting nerfed. So in the top lane, guys, if the matchup isn't too difficult, Titanic Hydra, Urgot, Kled, Set, this champion item combination is another one we have to think about for 11-21. And those are the 10 best champion and item combinations, guys, for this patch. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to be the best out of the list we gave, and maybe there's one we don't know. So let me know what it is in the comments. And as always, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like down below. Also remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and also make sure to check out the GameLeap website on your way out, linked in the description and comment section, for all the Challenger tier content you need to improve and to actually become a Challenger player. We have it on our website, so get that exclusive access by signing up. And until tomorrow's video, this has been the Cheers.